Hello, potential A-level history students, and welcome to your introduction to A-level history with Mr. Lloyd. I hope you're all safe and well and looking forward to the exciting journey of history in the sixth form. History at A-level is a bit different from GCSE. You will develop into much stronger historians, and while you are expected to do the usual things like learning dates and analysing sources, it is much more focused on you developing your own ideas about how and why historical events happened. We spend most of our time helping you to create your own arguments and developing effective ways of putting these forward and challenging the ideas of others. We will challenge historians and find out what are the most convincing arguments. There are two main modules that we study: Stuart Britain between 1603 and 1702, and Germany between 1918 and 1945. Okay, so one of your teachers will teach you about Stuart Britain and the crisis of the years 1603 to 1702. We will examine the Stuart kings, James I, Charles I, James II, and Charles II, as well as the period where England was ruled by Oliver Cromwell. This is a really exciting period of British history where much of what we understand to be our modern country was formed. It's a period of crisis where the monarch was challenged, removed, with the king having his head cut off, and then restored. It is a period that you're probably not very familiar with, but it's really exciting, with stories about kings living excessive lifestyles, taking advantage of their subjects, as well as revolutionary ideas and a civil war. So this is a breadth study that examines issues of change, continuity, cause and consequence over a period of 100 years. And it focuses on a few main questions. So we think about how far did the monarchy change? We think about to what extent and why was power more widely shared during this period. We think about why and with what results were the disputes over religion. How effective was opposition? How important were ideas and ideology? How important was the role of key individuals and groups? And how were they affected by developments? So that is the first module that you will have with one teacher. Now your other teacher will teach you about Germany between 1918 and 1945. Now this is a depth study of a period of German history during which a democratic form of government gave way to a dictatorial Nazi regime. Now although you have looked at this as part of your GCSE course, this time it will be in a lot more detail. You will notice that Year 12 finishes just as Hitler becomes Chancellor. So a topic you spent a couple of terms studying, you will now spend 2 years studying. And you will find that a lot of what we told you at GCSE was really simplified. So this study allows you to think about the issues in Germany at a much higher level, for which your current knowledge will be quite useful. It explores political concepts such as right and left, nationalism and liberalism, as well as ideological concepts such as racialism, anti-Semitism, and social Darwinism. And it encourages reflection on how governments work and the problems of democratic states as what sustains and creates a democracy. So there's one more unit that you will look at, and that is the historical investigation or coursework, which will develop your skills, knowledge, and historical understanding through an independent study. So you will develop an enhanced understanding of the nature and purpose of history as a discipline and how historians work. So you'll be doing real historical work that is done by historians. And you will submit an investigation based on an issue which has been subject to different historical interpretations or different ideas. So it must be independently researched and written by you. You need to utilize both primary and secondary sources related to your issue and the differing interpretations that have been placed upon this. And you must examine an issue across a period of about 100 years. So because it is an independent piece of work, this means that your teachers will have limited input in what you do. It will be your responsibility to research and write. Now, of course, we will give you guidance on how to approach it and teach you some of the background. Now, the topic for this has been set by Mr. Lloyd, and you will conduct your research around the political and social changes in Russia between 1855 and 1955. You will be free, however, to study an aspect of this that really interests you based on the teaching that you will have at the end of Year 12. Now, don't worry about this at the moment. We won't start on this until the end of Year 12, when you're much more confident in what you need to do as a historian. But that's just for you to be aware of what comes up later in the course. Okay, let me take you through the couple of tasks that I would like you to complete over the summer in order to prepare for your start in September. Now, these tasks are designed to give you a brief introduction to the topics and give you an overview of the periods you'll be studying. Now, first, I would like you to create a profile for 5 key people from each module. So for Stuart England, you should research James I, Charles I, Oliver Cromwell, John Pym, and George Villiers. And for Germany, you should research Adolf Hitler, Gustav Stresemann, Paul Hindenburg, Heinrich Brüning, and Friedrich Ebert. Now, for each of these, you need to find out 5 key dates, any 5 key dates that are an important part of their life. I also want you to find out what their major achievements were, so what did they do, but I also want you to think about what were their main failures, okay? And then finally, I just want you to gather together what are their personality traits, what were they like as a person, what can you find out about them. So you should write this out either on a piece of paper by hand or type on the computer and print it off and give it to me in September. Now, your second task is designed for you to research some of the key events that you will learn about and give you an overview of the periods that you're going to study. For each of these events, I would like you to research what happened and why it was significant. Again, you can either handwrite it or type it. Now, neither of these tasks should take you hours. It's just a little bit of research to get you started on some of the skills that you will need to develop as part of the course. Okay, you will find a document attached with this PowerPoint that gives you all of the instructions, so you don't need to keep pausing the video and going backwards and forwards. Now, if you need help at any time, then please do email me. Okay, finally, there is one other document that I have attached with this presentation. Now, this gives you some other ideas of things you can do to prepare for A-level history. This isn't something you have to do, but you may enjoy some of these aspects, and it will give you an introduction to some of the things you will study and some of the skills you will need to develop. So, you have some books that you can read. The short introduction ones, which are these 3 here, you can buy these for about £5, or you should be able to find all of these secondhand for a relatively small amount of money. You could also try and visit the Oxfam bookshop in Folkestone, which has a really good selection of history books, or you could use the local library. And really, anything you read about the periods are useful. It doesn't have to just be these 5 books. And I'm not expecting you to read the whole book. You may get hold of a copy of one of them and just read a few bits from it. But anything like that is going to aid you and prepare you for A-level history. Now, I've also listed here in the middle some films that you might be able to find online. Now, these are all good films, but don't take all of them as fact, as they do exaggerate, change a couple of things. But they're a useful watch to give you an introduction to some of the things you're going to look at. While this one here on the end, this gives you a bit more of an idea about how history is a living discipline that is constantly changing, and people constantly have different interpretations and different ideas about how and why they have different views of history, and that's what that film is really about. Now, there is also a list of podcasts which are free. These are really good, as some episodes are only half an hour long, and you can sit on the sofa with your headphones on and just listen to someone telling you about some of the events or some other aspects about history. The top one, the BBC Radio 4 one, that has loads of different historical events that they talk about, so you might want to do some searching to find something relevant to your A-level course, or you might just want to have a listen to something a bit more random. The Germany one, again, this does things that are a bit more random about different aspects of German history, not just about the period that we study. The Revolutions podcast, that is primarily focused just on the Stuart Britain and gives you a really good introduction to all the events that you'll study in sixth form. And the History Extra podcast, again, that just gives you an overview of like lots of different historical events, and you might be able to choose some that you're interested in. Finally, there is a list of documentaries that you can find online, and all of these are about an hour and will give you some good insight into the events that you're going to study as part of A-level history. So again, that's just something for you to maybe look at over the summer and take advantage of if you want to. Now, I hope that helps. Please contact me if you have any questions about anything at all. Enjoy the summer, and I will see you in September.